can do is just tell the truth and trust in the American people that over time they're going to know what the truth is.
Yes, it is time for the truth. Right here, right now. This is the Conservative Syndicate. Real conservative talk from real conservatives. With your host, John Matthews.
The latter-day prophet. Baying against the hypocrisies of our time.
And Joe Hakos.
You want answers.
I want the truth.
You can't handle the truth.
The Conservative Syndicate is comprised of some of the most informed pundits and activists available today. Together, we seek to tear down the imaginary wall, a separation between church and state through education, information, and engagement on the religion of politics and the politics of religion. And now, your host on the globally syndicated Conservative Syndicate, John Matthews and Joe Hakos.
And how are we doing out there? All across this great land of ours and around the world, it is that time. It's time for the Conservative Syndicate. Coming to you live right now out here in the left coast, the right coast, in between, all around the world, across the nation, nationally acclaimed, globally syndicated, the Conservative Syndicate. And I want to thank you for taking the time to join us today. One more time here, if you tuned in yesterday for a live show and just heard an archive, I do apologize for that, but we have been having some major technical difficulties with our Skype working the way it's supposed to in order to bring in contributors and callers and such. And I had to spend the evening looking at it and trying to figure out what to do. And if any of you out there are having the same problem with Skype, I found a solution. You need to get rid of the current version that it's using right now. I ended up downloading the 6.21 version of Skype, and it works like a champ. Doesn't look as good as the 7.1, but what is looks if it doesn't work, you know? It's kind of like a transvestite whore, you know? You know what I mean there. So anyway, we're glad you're with us today. This is Friday, and a lot going on here. But boy, there's been so much going on. And I got to tell you, just a real quick observation here of a couple of things here. One thing I'm noticing more and more of is that we are beginning to become a nation that majors in the minors. You know, when we have all the stuff going on out there, we've got our president tangoing down in Argentina and taking in a ball game while Brussels is burning. And, you know, there's some obligatory headlines and a little bit of criticism about whether he should be doing such stuff. Of course, the left, you know, they protect him. You know, what should he do? Should he just drop what he's doing and give in to what the terrorists are trying to accomplish? No, I'm not saying he should have flown home and got up in front of his teleprompter and recited everything that he probably knows by memory by now, and he could have done that anywhere he was at. But the photo ops don't put him in a good light. Not that Obama cares, which is probably the point and probably the major thing that people should be talking about. Not whether he's doing the tango or anything else or taking the ball game. It's that this man obviously has little regard for what the United States represents other than some oppressive monarchies that, you know, we're out to oppress the world and create new governments and all the other crap that we've been accused of. But this thing going on with the Cruz and Trump camp right now, Twitter war over a picture of their wives, pictures now of their wives, just indicates, you know, I post probably 10 to 15 to 20 posts a day with relevant stuff that's going out there, and I make my comments based on what the relevancy of those things are. And I offer commentary. I ask for contrary opinions. Anybody want to comment on my stuff? And I'd say on an average of maybe 5 to 6 responses when I post something. And I might post things for days and not see anything out there at all. I mean, some really good stuff that is really important to what's going on. Like I posted yesterday the article on the new revelation in the Hillary Clinton emails that they're actually now very close or looking very close. They now have evidence that Clinton used her position as Secretary of State to pander to people who were donating to the Clinton Foundation. And that has always been my contention. Once the Clinton Foundation came to the surface, and we heard that the FBI was expanding their investigation from security breaches to possible corruption, I said, okay, if they're going to take her down, if she's going to go down, it's going to go on corruption charges rather than the security issues that nobody wants to acknowledge exist. And, I post stuff like that out there all the time. And like I said, I might get a couple responses. Some people might like it. I might get a 1 or 2 line comment from somebody either agreeing with me or telling me what an ass I am for saying it or for posting it or whatever. But boy, I put something out here about Ted Cruz's wife or Donald Trump's wife. And the only thing I put out there was I think Ted Cruz should have responded more hastily and more firmly to disavow his association with the PAC. And this thing has ignited into a massive thing. These little things, these minor things that take up all this cyberspace and people's times. And in the meantime, the left just continues to progress with their agenda unnoticed, unattentive. People are not paying attention. So I just think that's really a testament of where we are. Have we become so stupid and so trivial that when we try to find something important to talk about, we end up talking about somebody's wife posing in a magazine years ago? Who the hell cares? I don't care if Melania Trump posed in Gentleman's Quarterly magazine, if that's what it's called, GQ or whatever. I don't read the magazine. Why would I care what she does when she's there? But these self-righteous people out there, somebody went out there and dug up a picture of her, and just so what? So you can make her look like some kind of bimbo slut or something? That isn't, hey, we got a bimbo in the White House right now running around with the title of First Lady. What does it matter? What does it matter? But we're turning into a nation that majors in the minors, and in the meantime, the left just continues to advance. The establishment continues to grow and solidify its hold on our government and our nation and our lives. And we're all concerned about something that belongs on TMZ or Access Hollywood or something, But that is a testament of where we've come. And that's really what we have to be concerned about. I do want to say something about that. I'll say it here probably after the break. But there are some things about the Cruz-Trump rivalry right now that have me much more concerned than whether or not Donald Trump's wife, who we all know is a trophy wife. Come on, Donald Trump is no good-looking guy. He's not a spring chicken. And that mop he wears on his head, come on, let's all say it for what it is. The guy's filthy rich, and he's got himself a trophy wife. So what? He's entitled to that, I guess. And if he's got one that's dumb enough or can stomach sleeping with him, hey, so much the better. And I say that just in humor, because I know that when my wife sees me without any clothes on, it's all she can do to keep from laughing too. So I'm not saying I'm any better than him. But my point being is that there are other things that are much more important that's going on in this rivalry right now that we need to look at. I'm going to cover some of that stuff today. In addition to that, I want to spend some time talking about what the establishment is really fearful of. Are they really fearful of a Trump presidency? No, I think they're more fearful of a Trump nomination. And I'll tell you what the difference is during the show today and why. Another thing I found a really insightful article, something you don't normally find on the internet, that has some very accurate portrayals or portraits of the people that have joined the Trump constituency. And I want to share that with you if I have time today. I also want to talk about Obama lecturing or telling the Cubans what they can learn from American elections. That'll be a laugh. And some stuff going on with Obamacare. See, Obamacare is still out there. It's 60 years now. It's the anniversary of Obamacare. And we're going to probably do a little review on that today as to what's going on with that. Clinton, like I said, some big news coming in about her email server and some of the emails that point to why she wanted a private server. And one last thing, if we have the time, voter fraud. I want to touch on voter fraud today if we get a chance. because that's going to become another issue here during the general election. Not much to do. Doesn't have much to do with it right now with the left. With their superdelegates and their dead Democrats voting, it's okay at this point in time. But when we get to the general election, it's going to be a whole different story. So we're going to talk about that. We have Don Dix from Act for America will be on with us the second hour today. And so that's pretty much what I hope to accomplish today if I can. You know, whatever we don't do today, we'll probably move on to Monday because they are important topics. It's just a matter of how the conversation goes. So we're going to take our first break here. When we come back, we'll get into today's festivities. Stay with us right here at the Conservative Syndicate. Don't go away. You can catch all our archives at theconservativesyndicate.net. The Conservative Syndicate. Real conservative talk from real conservatives.
When our water heater broke down last month, it was a nightmare. It took 5 hours for the plumber to show up, and he charged us a couple of $100 just to come out. Then it cost another $1,800 to put in the new water heater. By the time it was all said and done, I felt like I'd been taken. But what else could I do?
The smartest thing you can do is get a home warranty from American Residential Warranty. Their home warranties pay to repair or replace all your major appliances when they break, and they will break, and at the worst possible time. Call American Residential Warranty right now for free information on home warranties starting at just pennies a day. Don't wait for your refrigerator to stop running or your ceiling fans to stop turning. Call American Residential Warranty right now. Ask how you can save up to 50% on washer and dryer coverage. Just call 1-800-790-5960. That's 1-800-790-5960. Again, 1-800-790-5960. Call now.
Prices are for base buildings only. May not be available in some areas. Attention business owners, do you want a stimulus package that really works? Before you spend thousands of dollars more than you should on your next building project, listen to this. General Steel has a stimulus package designed to help you save as much as half the cost of conventional construction on your next building. As much as half. That's right. General Steel can save you thousands of dollars with a pre-engineered steel building designed for your business or church. How about a 50 by 100 foot building for under $30,000? So don't pay thousands more than you should without calling General Steel first and save as much as half the cost and time of conventional construction. With the projected demand for steel in Japan and China, prices may be skyrocketing.
877-927-3360. 877-927-3360. 877-927-3360.
Limited time offer, 24-month commitment and credit qualification require. Cancellation fee, auto pay, and paperless billing and other restrictions apply. If you can't see the difference, why pay the difference? Switch to Dish for the best deal in entertainment. Only Dish brings you the best in entertainment for less than $20 a month. Cut the cable and don't get directed. Switch to Dish because at just $19.99, Dish saves you every time you turn on the TV. It's so simple. The same channels cost less with Dish. So since you can't see the difference, don't pay the difference. Switch to Dish for the best deal in entertainment. Get premium movie channels free for 3 months, starting at just $19.99. Dish saves you every time you turn on the TV. Call now to save with Dish. Dial 1-800-600-1645. That's 1-800-600-1645. The same channels for less than $20 a month. Dish. Call 1-800-600-1645 for details.
Folks, if you're like me, you don't place a whole lot of trust in today's media for the real truth and facts regarding the volatile world of finance and politics. When I want the real scoop on money, I go to the most trusted source I know, my good friend and colleague, Bob Cardoso. Bob is a noted expert with a PhD in international finance who airs his nationally known, globally syndicated show, Robert Cardoso Live, daily, Monday through Friday from 4 to 6 p.m. Pacific Time. With Bob, you'll get the right information at the right time from someone who knows his business and can help you make the right decision concerning yours. Again, Bob airs daily, Monday through Friday from 4 to 6 p.m. Pacific Time. Visit his website at robertcardosolive.com for information regarding stations and topics. That's robertcardosolive.com. Check Bob out. You'll be glad you did.
Read something recently worth thinking about. It's the soldier, not the campus organizer, who's given us freedom to demonstrate. It's the soldier, not the reporter, who's given us freedom of the press. It's the soldier, not the poet, who's given us freedom of speech. It's the soldier who serves under the flag, who defends the protesters' right to burn the flag. Isn't it time now to demonstrate that we support our troops? Were it not for the brave, there'd be no land of the free.
Fred Thompson's message was brought to you by citizensunited.org.
Welcome back. We're back, and you are listening to the Conservative Syndicate, Real Conservative Talk from Real Conservatives. I'm your host, John Matthews, along with my co-host, Joe Hakos, who is out on rehabilitation leave right now. Probably be out a few more weeks. They finally located the problem he had in his back. They're treating it now, but he's going to be under treatment, still a little weak. So we're going to let him just take as much time as he needs to be able to recover from this. So it's a very bad infection caused by an abscess cyst in his back and affected his spine. And they finally located it, and they're taking care of it. So he'll be back. We'll just give him the rest. So just continue to lift up your prayers for Joe and his family. We appreciate having him here on the show. He's been an invaluable resource and friend. So we look forward to him coming back when he can. Now, before we get into anything else, I think I just want to kind of touch real quickly here on the primaries that are coming up here in the next couple of weeks here, just so we can get a handle on what's going on here. I think it's this weekend there's some Democrat caucuses, a couple of caucuses. I believe Alaska, Hawaii, and Washington are having their Democratic primaries this weekend, closed primaries. Tuesday next week, Wisconsin Republican primary, open primary, winner take all. So that one, the open primaries seem to work to the advantage of Donald Trump. There are, 96 delegates. That could be a hunk if he ends up winning that and taking that. That will put him up over 800, well on his way to what he needs to 1,237. The New York primary is going to be interesting. That's a closed primary, 291 delegates. Boy, if Cruz could pull an upset off there in the same way that Trump stomped Rubio down in Florida, can you imagine Ted Cruz taking New York, Trump's home base? 291 delegates, that would put him very close. And I'm going to say this, I think if Cruz is able to take New York, and I don't know if it's a proportional or whatever, because it's not a winner-take-all. Proportional. It is proportional. So if Cruz is able to take a good hunk of votes out of New York, then just think about what that would mean, in terms of not being able to take your home state. And would kind of take some of that mockery away, sting out of Trump's voice, perhaps, that he directed towards Rubio when Rubio got stomped down in Florida. But the thing is, if that happens, then it's going to be really, I think, improbable that either one of these two candidates pull in that 1,237 they need to sew up the nomination. And so I think after the New York primary, we're going to know whether we're going to be heading towards a brokered convention or a contested convention or something like that. So I'll probably lay off the brokered convention stuff until that time, because we've been beating that like a dead horse here well longer than anybody else. And I think that will be the deciding election. 291 delegates, and how that splits is going to determine if Trump is going to be able to come up on that number that he needs, or whether Cruz makes such a leap that we can look at this thing down the line and say, it's going to be hard to determine if either candidate is going to make it. And, of course, Kasich's hanging back, like the parasite that he is, thinking that he's going to end up being the guy because he's the only one that can beat Hillary. He can't beat anybody in his own party, but he can beat Hillary. I guess that's because, as he once said, he is the best choice between Hillary and Bernie. Yeah, figure that one out. Okay, so anyway, that's what's coming up here in the next couple of weeks here. So we'll we'll take a look at that when time requires or when time mandates. All right, now let's get back here. I want to sew up this thing on the Cruz-Trump banter or war, Twitter war that's going on out there. Cruz pretty much issued a threat last night on TV, telling Trump, you know what, you're pissing me off. You come after my wife. There's going to be some problems here, whatever that means, however you want to translate that. And, I got to thinking about this. As I have said here, Cruz, I think, was not strong enough in his rebuke of the PAC that sent that ad out about Donald Trump's wife. Now, I'm sure Donald Trump could really have cared less about that photo. That photo has been around for a long time, and it's not like it hasn't been out there before. Trump is, I'm sure, aware and probably has all the photos of his wife when she did all the stuff that she did before they were married, or I don't even know if she did it when they were married. But the point being is that at one time she was a model, and she did some of this stuff. Okay, all right, it is what it is. Time to move on. We're not electing Melania Trump to the office of the presidency. Okay, I just thought Cruz's handling of it was lame. He could have stomped on this thing very fast and turned it to his advantage by simply coming out and saying, look, this PAC did this without our knowledge, and we condemn this kind of advertising. I've always been the candidate that's wanted to take the high ground, and I've always tried to stay out of this kind of stuff. I mean, he talked about that stuff all the time. I'm not going to get into the gutter with everybody else. I'm not going to get into the name calling and everything else. And yet his response to this was weak. Trump, on the other hand, he responded in kind. And the first couple of responses, I said, okay, fair is fair. You got trumped here. It's time to Trump back if you want to do that. But now Trump has taken it to a whole new level where he is actually out there trying to do things to discredit Ted Cruz. He calls him Lying Ted. I'm hearing there's some article in the Esquire. What's it called? What was that old paper that was out there before? The Inquirer. Remember that old commercial? The Inquirer wants to know. Everybody wants to know. The Inquirer wants to know, or something like that. A gossip magazine. This is stuff you pick up on the newsstand, that we find out, Barack Obama is really the child of the Roswell dummy in a relationship with Madeleine Albright or something like that, that kind of stuff. Just pure propaganda, spewing out pure garbage, because apparently there are a lot of people that like to read pure garbage. I guess so. A lot of people like to watch The View. There's no accounting for taste, I guess, when it comes to the liberal mindset, because I guess everything, if it's entertaining, it's valid. It doesn't matter if it's true or not. If I'm entertained by it, hey, it's cool, the kind of thing, So, anyway, as I got to looking at this stuff, and then the latest barrage coming out of the Trump camp, and then this National Enquirer magazine article, which I haven't even read yet. People are sending me questions about it. Do you think it's true? And I'm like, I don't even know. I have to look at it. I would doubt it just by who's putting it out there. National Enquirer. That's like going to Judge Judy for an honest assessment of a case, that kind of thing. But anyway, I got to thinking about this. Why would Trump take this to such a level? And, he'll really benefit nothing from it. But there were two things. The first thing that popped in my mind was, remember when he said a few weeks back that his followers are so loyal to him that he could shoot somebody on Fifth Avenue and no one would condemn him for it or convict him for it? I'm not sure if he was just being sarcastic or not. But I think it does kind of reflect the attitude of a lot of the people that I run into that support Donald Trump. And that is, the man can do no wrong. This is not unlike Barack Obama in 2008 and in 2012 even, when he had a record that you could measure him by, and people still wanted to discount that record and still wanted to tout him as the messianic man who's going to bring America together and fundamentally transform it and turn us into the nation of hope and change again and all that crap. And so, but I got to thinking about this. Let's look at this just from a purely political strategy standpoint. I really believe what Trump is doing here is he is using Ted Cruz. Ted Cruz, I'll use the term I've been using is collateral damage. Ted Cruz is collateral damage to Donald Trump right now. And what he's doing is he's using this little incident to fire a shot across the bow of the left's campaign strategies, which will be, whoever is the Republican nominee, will be to discredit, smear, spin. I mean, if you think politics have been dirty, wait till you see what they do now. If Donald Trump wins the nomination, I think the left will be just as frantic as the establishment in the GOP is right now, because Trump is a player, and he has played both sides of the political aisle. He understands how both sides think. He is establishment because establishment plays both sides. He is a player because he has played the game on both sides, and he understands both sides, and he's probably privy to some things on both sides that perhaps now people who have been in bed with him probably regret letting him know one way or the other. And so I'm thinking what he's doing here is he's using Ted Cruz as a preview of coming attractions. What he's doing is he's saying basically, Hillary, if you guys lose your leftist political propaganda smear machine against me, this is what you can expect in return. We'll go after you in the same manner. I mean, they'll be dragging out all of Bill's past history. They'll be dragging out Chelsea's relationship with her husband, who were the parents of two congresspeople who were indicted years ago for corruption, no longer in Congress. But this is their child, and married into the Clinton family. I'll look the name up sometime and dig it. It's not relevant right now, but you'll get the drift of what I'm talking about. There'll be all kinds of stuff dragged out here. Yeah, maybe enlist the help of the National Enquirer to bring out all those dead Secret Service agents that have died while they've been serving the Clintons, both in and out of the White House. The examinations that have gone on about people, Vince Foster, Ron Brown, some of these people that have died because of their relationship with the Clintons, one way or the other. I mean, there is so much dirt and soap opera crap that Trump could pay somebody to dig up. Just have to go in their archives. I'm sure sitting in somebody's in basket somewhere. And I think this is what he's doing. This is a warning shot across the bow of the left. You think I'm being tough on Ted Cruz? You come after me like this and watch what happens to you. That's what I'm seeing right now. So Cruz is just collateral damage. You know, it is what it is. Trump's not going to let a good incident go to waste. Adopting Rahm Emanuel's good crisis go to waste. Trump is not going to let a good incident go to waste. Here's an opportunity to basically let everybody know, if they try to play dirty ball with me, this is what they're going to get in return. That's my thought. It's just a thought. I don't know if it's true one way or the other, but I think Trump's a pretty shrewd character in terms of how he does things. I don't think he's the brightest man walking the face of the earth. I certainly don't think he's the most qualified. But he is a deal maker. He is a salesman. And, he's probably played this game more than once with more than one persons, whatever the plural that is. And, you get what I'm talking about here. So it'll be interesting. I just wanted to get that out of the way. I'm more concerned about Cruz's affiliation now with the Bush family and the Romney family and Lindsey Graham for the 2 votes that he'll bring in. But there's still the association really shows us or indicates to us just how desperate the Republican establishment is at this point from having Donald Trump in that position as player up in a bully pulpit, and he knows what the establishment does because he has been part of it, whether you want to deny that or not. We got to go to our break. When we come back, we'll continue our discussion. We're going to get on to some other things. particularly the Senate races that are going on. I got some stuff for you there. Stay with us right here at the Conservative Syndicate. Don't go away. You can catch all our archives at theconservativesyndicate.net. The Conservative Syndicate. Real conservative talk from real conservatives.
Limited time offer, 24-month commitment and credit qualification require cancellation fee, auto pay, and paperless billing and other restrictions apply. If you can't see the difference, why pay the difference? Switch to Dish for the best deal in entertainment. Only Dish brings you the best in entertainment for less than $20 a month. Cut the cable and don't get directed. Switch to Dish because at just $19.99, Dish saves you every time you turn on the TV. It's so simple. The same channels cost less with Dish. So since you can't see the difference, don't pay the difference. Switch to Dish for the best deal in entertainment. Get premium movie channels free for 3 months, starting at just $19.99. Dish saves you every time you turn on the TV. Call now to save with Dish. Dial 1-800-600-1645. That's 1-800-600-1645. The same channels for less than $20 a month. Dish. Call 1-800-600-1645 for details.
Attention taxpayers! If you've received a notice from the IRS or state, do not ignore it. It's also a big mistake to try and handle your tax problem on your own. If you owe back taxes, it's a fact that the government has the power to take everything you own, including your home, business, wages, savings, and your freedom. But here's the good news. There's a special toll-free tax hotline set up especially for you. This tax hotline will tell you about new programs that are geared to help you dramatically settle, reduce, or eliminate what you owe. But you have to call now. Take down this number or put it in your cell phone. But call 866-761-0959. 1-866-761-0959. When you call, you get free information on how you can reduce or eliminate back taxes, including penalties and interest. You can also be helped if you have unfiled returns, a tax lien, wage garnishment, bank levy, or if you have been entered into a payment plan but can't make the payments. Don't make the big mistake in thinking you can ignore or handle your tax problem on your own. You can stop the collection process immediately. Call this special tax hotline today for free info at 1-866-761-0959. That's 1-866-761-0959. 1-866-761-0959. Attention taxpayers! If you've received a notice from the IRS or state, do not ignore it. It's also a big mistake to try and handle your tax problem on your own. If you owe back taxes, it's a fact that the government has the power to take everything you own, including your home, business, wages, savings, and your freedom. But here's the good news. There's a special toll-free tax hotline set up especially for you. This tax hotline will tell you about new programs that are geared to help you dramatically settle, reduce, or eliminate what you owe. But you have to call now. Take down this number or put it in your cell phone. But call 866-761-0959. 1-866-761-0959. When you call, you get free information on how you can reduce or eliminate back taxes, including penalties and interest. You can also be helped if you have unfiled returns, a tax lien, wage garnishment, bank levy, or if you've been entered into a payment plan but can't make the payments. Don't make the big mistake in thinking you can ignore or handle your tax problem on your own. You can stop the collection process immediately. Call this special tax hotline today for free info at 1-866-761-0959. That's 1-866-761-0959. 1-866-761-0959.
Folks, if you're like me, you don't place a whole lot of trust in today's media for the real truth and facts regarding the volatile world of finance and politics. When I want the real scoop on money, I go to the most trusted source I know, my good friend and colleague, Bob Cardoso. Bob is a noted expert with a PhD in international finance who airs his nationally known, globally syndicated show, Robert Cardoso Live, daily, Monday through Friday from 4 to 6 p.m. Pacific Time. With Bob, you'll get the right information at the right time from someone who knows his business and can help you make the right decision concerning yours. Again, Bob airs daily, Monday through Friday from 4 to 6 p.m. Pacific Time. Visit his website at robertcardosolive.com for information regarding stations and topics. That's robertcardosolive.com. Check Bob out. You'll be glad you did.
Read something recently worth thinking about. It's the soldier, not the campus organizer, who's given us freedom to demonstrate. It's the soldier, not the reporter, who's given us freedom of the press. It's the soldier, not the poet, who's given us freedom of speech. It's the soldier who serves under the flag, who defends the protesters' right to burn the flag. Isn't it time now to demonstrate that we support our troops? Were it not for the brave, there'd be no land of the free.
Fred Thompson's message was brought to you by citizensunited.org.
You're listening to the Conservative Syndicate, real conservative talk from real conservatives. I am your host, John Matthews, Mad Prophet of the Airways, on a mission from God. And that mission was to tear down the imaginary wall of separation between church and state. We do that on this show by educating, informing, and engaging you, our listening audience. I got to tell you something here, guys. Somebody sent me a post here. A good friend of mine lives up there, I believe, in Wyoming. And she asked me if I had seen or heard the National Enquirer story on Ted Cruz. And if it was true, and if it was, who was I going to support? Because she knows I'm a Cruz supporter. And I got to tell you right now, I'm kind of a Cruz supporter, not as excited as I was just a week ago, as I have been expounding on this show. I had 48 hours after finding out that the Cruz campaign had enlisted the help of Neil Bush, the youngest Bush brother, on their campaign finance team, and that set me off on a rage of about two days about, okay, Cruz is dead meat to me, because the Bushes are dead meat to me. And just the association there. Then to find out on top of that, Mitt Romney has endorsed Cruz. Of course, Mitt Romney's endorsed everybody in his campaign but Hillary Clinton. I wouldn't be surprised if tomorrow he endorses Bernie Sanders. I don't know. And then Lindsey Graham, of course, endorsing Ted Cruz after previously believing that Ted Cruz should be shot because he's so unlikable in the Senate. But that's strictly politics. That's what establishment people do, you know. And I didn't want to argue the point as to whether the Bushes were endorsing Cruz now for the same reason. But to bring on a Bush on your team, that really set me off. But I've weighed it all out, and I decided, okay, the one thing that's really hanging in the balance here that to me is the number one issue is the upcoming Supreme Court nominee. And anybody but Cruz, I have a problem with who might be nominated. And the following, the subsequent debate and rivalries and arguments over that. So I'm going to stick with Cruz because if we lose the Supreme Court balance, I mean, it's not that we have one right now, but if this thing flips from a 5-4 majority one way or the other to a 6-3, then it's all over for us. Because there's nothing, nobody's going to be able to stop anything that the left wants to do right now when you've got an FDR-style rubber stamping Supreme Court that is going to wage their decisions on their political ideologies and not on what the Constitution has to say about anything. But anyway, I'm looking at, during the break here, I just took a moment and I called up this National Enquirer thing, and I'll point a couple really quick things out to you right off what I noticed right off the top. What I noticed right off the top is that the article or the posting about the article, see, they're not posting the article, they're posting about the article. They're saying that the National Enquirer has detectives searching for alleged 5 mistresses that Ted Cruz has had over the years in whatever combination and whatever time frame, but they're investigating this. And so, and then to get the list, to learn what it is or who they are, you have to go out and buy a copy of the National Enquirer because the article doesn't talk about who they are. It talks about the fact that the magazine is researching and checking out allegations that Ted Cruz has had an affair with 5 mistresses. So this is a propaganda piece. First of all, the National Enquirer, how brain dead does somebody have to be to think that the National Enquirer is a valid substance, a valid publication of substance? Any magazine that you see posted at the check stand on your way out in any store is not a valid piece of material. And you say, well, what about Time Magazine? That exactly demonstrates my point. Time Magazine has turned into nothing but a propaganda piece. Even Sports Illustrated now, it's all about the swimsuits and the latest athlete to be arrested for beating his wife or drug charges or dog fighting or whatever it is. It's not about sports anymore. That's just the filler. It's about all the side stories, the back stories, the scandal, the sleaze, Because I guess that's what people like to read. And if that's what people like to read, then that is, once again, we're back to the reflection on the electorate and then why they can vote for somebody like a Hillary Clinton, somebody who the very people voting for think she's dishonest and corrupt, but they'll vote for her anyway. I mean, it speaks volumes here. So anyway, so the closest thing I could find here was an article in the Daily Beast about Ted Cruz affair rumors being peddled by Marco Rubio allies. And the implication here, or the insinuation here, is that Marco Rubio had been digging this up or trying to substantiate some of this months ago, I guess maybe in an attempt to try to use it somewhere, and it never was used. But now it's being picked up by somebody else out there, and Cruz is accusing the Trump camp of taking this. And again, it just reinforces what I was just saying before. Trump is telling people basically, you come after my family and it's going to be a major thing. It's going to be a major thing. It will be a major thing. And so I'm waiting to see how the left plays this should Trump actually make it to the general election. Because there's a lot of dirt on Hillary that can be slung out there, and I'm sure Trump will do his own share of mudslinging. The difference is a lot of what Hillary Clinton can be accused of, there is documentation for. Everything else on the other side here is speculation. The National Enquirer alleged on March 23rd that the senator has had 5 extramarital affairs, and the description it provided of the women, along with barely pixelated headshots of them, meaning faded shots. You can pick 5 women. You could call up Gloria Allred and say, "Hey, send me the 5 women you're looking at now that you're representing now on sexual abuse charges." And she could send them 5. She's probably got a room full of them, right? And so it says, left little to the D.C. insiders' imaginations as to who the Enquirer had accused of being Cruz paramours. A hooker, a teacher, and co-workers. 5 romps that will destroy Ted Cruz. But you have to buy the National Enquirer to get the pictures in resolution enough that there'll be something that you can actually look at. And I would just about bet if you went out and bought National Enquirer, you won't find those pictures at all. I think there'll be, pictures of like partial headshots with your head turned away or something like that. That stuff can be photoshopped in and everything else. So I'm just like, I'm surprised that somebody would even entertain the idea, even entertaining the idea that the National Enquirer has uncovered 5 extramarital affairs of Ted Cruz. I guarantee you, if the establishment had that information, that would have been floated out there a long, long time ago, like maybe after his first filibuster. Yeah, let's be real. Let's be real. All right, so I don't know. That is it's beyond the pale, and we can expect so much of this. There's going to be so much of this in the general election. I doubt seriously if we'll ever have a real serious debate from this point on. I don't know. I don't see ever being able to utilize the debate platform again, whether it be in a primary or general election, because the questioning and the slander and the smear becomes the points that everybody wants to talk about. And meanwhile, ISIS is still out there cutting people's heads off. People like the Castros and down in Argentina, where Barack Obama spent the week hanging out, eating tacos, taking in baseball games, doing the tango, they're still advancing their game, and Obama's still building up his resume for world domination at the UN. All this stuff is still going on, and all we're worried about is who somebody's sleeping with, for crying out loud, or who took a picture of somebody's wife, or somebody's... I mean, come on, folks. We all know Melania Trump is a trophy wife. Let's give it up. So what? How many of you, if you were worth $10 billion or some amount thereof, and you didn't have a wife, wouldn't want a trophy wife? Come on, let's be real, guys. Let's be real. That's what it is. That's what it's all about. Anyway, we got to go to break. When we come back, we'll continue. Maybe we'll get into some stuff that has some real substance behind it. Stay with us right here at Conservative Syndicate. Don't. You can catch all our archives at theconservativesyndicate.net. The Conservative Syndicate. Real conservative talk from real conservatives.
Term life insurance. It can be a powerful way to protect your assets and your family. You work hard to earn and save your money to build a nest egg for the future. Don't let it get wiped out because you didn't plan ahead. Take the time now and make a small investment in $500,000 or more in quality term life insurance. Call the Term Lifeline and let us shop the best companies to give you the lowest rates. We specialize in policies of $500,000 and above. Ask about some of our 10 and 20-year fixed rate plans with guaranteed rates. Call the Term Lifeline right now for your free insurance quote. 800-870-3609. 800-870-3609. You owe it to yourself to protect your family and your assets. Make term life insurance part of that plan. Call the Term Lifeline right now. 800-870-3609. 800-870-3609.
Hey folks, if you're like me, you don't place a whole lot of trust in today's media for the real truth and facts regarding the volatile world of finance and politics. When I want the real scoop on money, I go to the most trusted source I know, my good friend and colleague, Bob Cardoso. Bob is a noted expert with a PhD in international finance who airs his nationally known, globally syndicated show, Robert Cardoso Live, daily, Monday through Friday from 4 to 6 p.m. Pacific Time. With Bob, you'll get the right information at the right time from someone who knows his business and can help you make the right decision concerning yours. Again, Bob airs daily, Monday through Friday from 4 to 6 p.m. Pacific Time. Visit his website at robertcardosolive.com for information regarding stations and topics. That's robertcardosolive.com. Check Bob out. You'll be glad you did. Okay, hey, we're back. This is the Conservative Syndicate, and I am your host, John Matthews. And I had to turn my mic off here. I'm laughing at this saying so much. I'm sounding like a blithering fool. Yeah, listen, what? I don't know. What a bent society that anybody would think that the National Enquirer is a legitimate piece of journalistic whatever you want, journalism. All right, come on, let's grow up, people. Let's grow up. Why don't we just watch TMZ for our news then? Okay. I mean, it's bad enough right now that we go to the Daily Show and John Oliver to get our news and Bill Mayer to get our commentary. Now we're going to go to TMZ to get our news, and we're going to refer to the National Enquirer as a legitimate piece of journalistic integrity. Give me a freaking break. I mean, come on. Let's get real here. Okay, some substance for a change here. When we talk about the establishment and we talk about them being fearful of Donald Trump, and I have talked about and expounded on more than I can even care to recollect how Trump's presence and his existence in this primary is a threat to the Republican establishment. And I've explained that I believe that's because Trump is as on par with being establishment as anybody that's in the establishment. And the only thing that we can say about Donald Trump in terms of him not being a politician is that he's never really seriously run for office. I know that he played around with the idea a few times. I think in 2000 he was going to run with the Reformation Party or something like that. And I think in the last election, 2008, maybe 2012, he was talking about running, but he didn't really do it. It just turned out to be all talk. This time around, he's in, and it looks like he's in to win, and he's doing a very good job of doing that right now. So everybody's just kind of like, oh, man, if he gets elected, the Republican Party will implode, and it may. I mean, it may. But there's something about this that I think is more important to the Republican Party than Donald Trump sitting in the White House. When you consider the fact that the argument that the Congress, especially the Senate, has been presenting the American people over the last 8 years is that they can't do anything because they've never had the proper balance in power to be able to do anything. First it was, well, we don't have the Senate, so we gave them the Senate. In fact, I think in the beginning it was they didn't have the House or the Senate. We gave them the House in 2010. Then it was, we need a Senate majority. We gave them the Senate majority in 2012. And now they're telling us because in the 2014 election, it was because we don't have the White House. So the argument is, okay, since we don't control all three branches of the two more important branches of the government, the legislative and the executive branch, we really are powerless to do anything. And we know that's a lie because there have been other presidents, other administrations that have had and have dealt with opposing factions in power when they were in the White House. Bill Clinton did it with Newt Gingrich, and Ronald Reagan did it with Tip O'Neill. And they got some things done. And so this whole idea that you can't do it unless you're controlling both the executive and the legislative branch is just an indication or an admission that you're not willing to take buck up and do what you have to do to get things done. Now, having said that, it's not whether or not Trump wins the presidency that's the issue for the establishment. It's whether or not Trump wins the nomination to run for president. Because if that is the case, Trump might withstand and he might be able to overcome anything that the left has to throw at him. Like I said, there's plenty of dirt on Hillary. And as we're seeing with this Trump Cruz thing going on out there in Twitter world, Trump is not above pulling out the big guns and just going for blood. He's not above it. He's indicated here he's not above it. The accusations that he's behind this National Enquirer thing, I don't know if they're true or not. I would not just say off the top, no, he's not. He might be. I don't know. It doesn't matter. The information's out there, and the media's having a great time with it. They're having a great time with it because it ignited this little Twitter war. Like I said, majoring in minor stuff. Everybody's paying attention to Melania Trump in GQ magazine 5-6 years ago, or however long ago it was, and now that's becoming front and center. So what? That'd be like Michelle Obama taking the bag off her head. Everybody want to know what she looks like, that kind of stuff. But anyway, I'm digressing there. So my point being is that what the establishment is concerned about, much more than whether Trump wins the presidency, is if Trump wins the nomination. Because if Trump wins the nomination, his candidacy now provides the left with something they can use to try to overturn the Senate majority. That is what the establishment is fearing. Having a president that's a Republican, a Democrat, or any combination of the two is not important to the Republicans. It is that balance of power that they have obtained in the Senate and the House of Representatives that they need to protect their own interests. And that would be the interests of the establishment who pays for them and funds them and who they rub elbows with and who they're always doing their favors for. The pork and the little favors here and there, the bills that pass and all the other stuff. That is what is important to the Republican establishment, not who sits in the White House. They understand the executive branch is the executive branch and that the executive branch has very little power to do anything unless Congress allows it to happen. And that's what's happened with Barack Obama. It's not that Barack Obama has the power to do what he's doing. It's that Congress has not resisted his attempts to circumvent and undermine the Constitution. They have stood idly by because the establishment people play both sides of the fence. We've been pointing that out here. So the threat to the establishment is losing the Senate majority, much more than it is having another Democrat like Hillary Clinton in the White House. If you really think about it, if Hillary Clinton wins the White House and the Republicans retain the Senate and the House, there isn't a whole lot she's really going to be able to get done that Barack Obama hasn't already done. She's just basically going to either be trying to expand on this to some degree for the purpose of setting up another race in 2020, that kind of thing. So, that kind of stuff. So anyway, we'll see how that plays out. But all that said, that is really what's going on here. So what I've been doing is I've been looking at some stuff here. And what I'm seeing here is that the media is out there now. They're starting to put stuff out there as to who the people are who are in danger of losing their seats either in the Senate. I'm looking at the Senate because if we talked about the House, we would talk about a whole lot of people here. But if we look at the Senate, it's very recognizable and it's very discernible, and it puts things into a context and small enough group of people that we can kind of get the picture. I can kind of just really confirm my contention that that's what the Republican establishment is worried about. Not Trump in the White House, but Trump standing across the stage from Hillary Clinton and then having the beat machine out there talking about what a sexist, racist, bigoted, homophobic guy Donald Trump is. Although I've never really heard Donald Trump talk about homosexuals, but they've been grouped in, and just like blacks. I've never heard Donald Trump really say anything about the black community, but they're being grouped in with, of course, the illegal immigrants and the gender card. It's all, if you hate one, you must hate them all kind of thing. And that's the way it's being played, and that's the way it will be played. So what we have here, and what I'm going to play or talk about when we get back after the break here, coming up at the top of the hour here, is 10 Senate seats most likely to flip in the 2016 election. And we'll talk with Don Dix. He'll be on with us next hour. We'll kind of float this topic out there with him and see what he thinks. In the meantime, it's time for the Edwards Notebook. We'll be back in just a few moments, folks. Stay with us right here at the Conservative.
Is Black America in more dire straits today? Hello, I'm Ron Edwards. On today's page from the Edwards Notebook, every time I hear progressive Black American politicians, community organizers, professors, or certain preachers, the complaints are always the same. America is racist. The police are out to kill us. Black Lives Matter. Oh, I almost forgot. The other standby complaint, we be held down by the man. Unfortunately, the legions of Black American government school victims are hardwired for duty in the army of progressive destruction of American society. I find it ironic that during the height or low of American segregation during the early to mid-20th century, Black Americans were mostly upwardly mobile. They didn't sit around seeking to live off the government handouts or beg to be allowed into white-owned or dominated establishments, at least until the civil or bastardized rights movement. Segregation was seen as something to overcome. Black neighborhoods throughout America during the 1930s, the 1940s, and 50s were chock full of businesses ranging from mom-and-pop grocery stores to 4- and 5-star hotels in cities like Cleveland, Detroit, and the famous Harlem in New York City. Just so no one gets it twisted, I am not advocating segregation by any means, but rather making astute observations concerning segregation during the 20th century and today's version of segregation. Of course, today, Black people can walk into any public park, business, church, etc. without wrongful treatment from racist Democrats or their allies, the KKK. Thank God. Every so often, I look at old pictures of American cities and neighborhoods. I marvel at the huge numbers of businesses that used to line the avenues of boulevards of Black neighborhoods in decades past. In fact, during the late 1930s until the mid-1960s, there were a very little difference between most Black city neighborhoods and their white working-class enclaves, which were also full of many businesses. Business vacancies were the exception, not the norm, such as you will find in most major city neighborhoods of today. Even when it comes to vacations, Blacks were banned from many amusement parks, beaches, resorts, but they didn't sit around and cry like little babies. Black Americans acted like adults, purchased land, and built their own resorts, and enjoyed life. In the 1930s, Black American entrepreneur George W. Tyson saw the Democrats' segregation policy as an opportunity to create business prosperity for himself and others. So he purchased 47 acres of beachfront property in Horry County, South Carolina. Tyson soon constructed the Black Hawk nightclub, which became a very popular location for blacks living in the area. Since Tyson did well, he was able to persuade other black entrepreneurs to open businesses in the community. In 1936, Tyson had 10 purchases for plots on his land from other black businessmen. Those businesses thrived as well. The tract along what became the Atlantic Beach was eventually filled with eateries, hotels, banks, and many smaller shops. People from all over visited and vacationed throughout the area. Because of Democrat KKK segregationists' practices and laws, Atlantic Beach also became the host for many prominent black American singers who performed at nearby Myrtle Beach. Unfortunately, the fun was blown away by a double whammy consisting of Hurricane Hazel in 1954. Some entrepreneurs rebuilt, but the fatal blow came as a result of anti-segregation laws being enforced and blacks more than eager to spend their money where they had been refused before. By the mid-1960s, business owners in the now downtrodden resort area were determined to revitalize its economic status and preserve its history. Unfortunately, the well-meaning efforts to renew the historic black businesses and resorts fell flat and remains an area of abandonment to this day. That scenario was repeated throughout the Republic because, unlike other ethnic groups, blacks were persuaded through the civil rights, or as my dad called it, the bastardized rights movement, to relinquish economic pursuits for socialist, liberal-oriented politics. A comparative few black Americans have succeeded in the political and community activist class, which has steered the American black community into a bitter anti-free market mentality. At the same time, government schools have indoctrinated generations of black Americans with an anti-American, you-owe-me mentality, which has contributed to the reversal of fortunes, financially, socially, and mentally. I'm Ron Edwards.
Blowing away the myths and revealing the truth with Ron Edwards on Facebook, Twitter, and theronedwards.com.
You can catch all our archives at theconservativesyndicate.net. The Conservative Syndicate. Real conservative talk from real conservatives.
When our water heater broke down last month, it was a nightmare. It took 5 hours for the plumber to show up, and he charged us a couple of $100 just to come out. Then it cost another $1,800 to put in the new water heater. By the time it was all said and done, I felt like I'd been taken. But what else could I do?
The smartest thing you can do is get a home warranty from American Residential Warranty. Their home warranties pay to repair or replace all your major appliances when they break, and they will break, and at the worst possible time. Call American Residential Warranty right now for free information on home warranties starting at just pennies a day. Don't wait for your refrigerator to stop running or your ceiling fans to stop turning. Call American Residential Warranty right now. Ask how you can save up to 50% on washer and dryer coverage. Just call 1-800-790-5960. That's 1-800-790-5960. Again, 1-800-790-5960. Call now.
Prices are for base buildings only. May not be available in some areas. Attention business owners, do you want a stimulus package that really works? Before you spend thousands of dollars more than you should on your next building project, listen to this. General Steel has a stimulus package designed to help you save as much as half the cost of conventional construction on your next building. As much as half. That's right. General Steel can save you thousands of dollars with a pre-engineered steel building designed for your business or church. How about a 50 by 100 foot building for under $30,000? So don't pay thousands more than you should without calling General Steel first, and save as much as half the cost and time of conventional construction. With the projected demand for steel in Japan and China, prices may be skyrocketing.
877-927-3360. 877-927-3360. 877-927-3360.
All you can do is just tell the truth and trust in the American people that over time they're going to know what the truth is.
Yes, it is time for the truth. Right here, right now. This is the Conservative Syndicate. Real conservative talk from real conservatives. With your host, John Matthews.
The latter-day prophet. Baying against the hypocrisies of our time.
And Joe Hakos.
You want answers. I want the truth. You can't handle the truth.
The Conservative Syndicate is comprised of some of the most informed pundits and activists available today. Together, we seek to tear down the imaginary wall, a separation between church and state through education, information, and engagement on the religion of politics and the politics of religion. And now, your hosts on the globally syndicated Conservative Syndicate, John Matthews and Joe Hakos.
Hey, and we're back, and this is hour 2 of the Conservative Syndicate, real conservative talk from real conservatives. I'm your host, John Matthews, and glad to have you with us tonight. Hey, I'm just chuckling here. I got to be honest with you. I'm having fun today looking at all the stuff that's out there. It's amazing, just amazing. You know what? If I turn on the TV tonight and all I see on the Kelly File or Bill O'Reilly or Hannity or any of those shows out there is about this tweet war that's going on, I'm going to scream. I'm going to scream. It's unbelievable how quickly we are so distracted by things, so distracted and pointed in a different direction with everything that's going on. We have out there the situation with Hillary Clinton. Let me pull that up here since we're in our short segment. We can knock that out, and we'll talk about, one of the things. For instance, why is nobody making a big deal about the fact that Bill Clinton last week came out and said these words? If you believe we've finally come to the point where we can put the awful legacy of the last 8 years behind us and the 7 years before that when we were practicing trickle-down economics and no regulation in Washington, which is what caused the crash, then you should vote for. Why is nobody jumping all over that? What do you mean, Bill Clinton? You mean the last 8 years of your president, Barack Obama? The same Barack Obama that your wife is telling us she's going to mirror what he's done and build on what he's accomplished? Why isn't the media all over that like white on rice, for crying out loud? Why are they not out there talking about Bill Clinton basically condemning the Obama administration? I understand the pot shots at the Bush administration. Why is nobody out there jumping all over Bill Clinton as to why you're the guy that laxed the regulations that created the crash that we're talking about? Hey, Mr. Clinton, you were the guy that was in office when you and Jim Johnson over at Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae, when you were out there relaxing the regulations on loans and created the subprime bubble. You guys were the guys that made millions of dollars off of that and then walked away, and then it comes a full fruitation. Yes, George W. Bush was responsible for letting it continue, but why is nobody talking about the fact it was the Clintons who expanded on this idea of financing the subprime lending, which, by the way, was brought about through the legislation of another president, Jimmy Carter. And again, yes, Ronald Reagan was wrong for not stopping it, but they didn't expand on it. You did. George W. Bush remained silent. Well, he whined about it a little bit. Why is nobody talking about that? Because those are issues, and they have facts assigned to them. There's evidence assigned to them. People don't want to talk about that. We'd rather talk about the boobs of Donald Trump's wife, or her posing in a magazine. We'd rather talk about Heidi Cruz having to fight depression, that kind of thing. The things that don't mean anything in the big scheme of what we're talking about. We're all out here screaming and crying that the Republic is going to hell in a handbasket, that everything is just exploding right before us. And what is it that we're talking about? Somebody's boobs in a magazine, for crying out loud. And we wonder why we're in the position where we're the ones that have done this anyway. So I'm wondering, why isn't anybody talking about that if we're going to be talking about something? Why isn't anybody talking about this revelation now that Hillary Clinton, her emails have some information in there that she was actually, her aides were actually obstructing justice and using her office as Secretary of State to cover the asses of people out there that were giving money to her foundation. There's a whole lot of stuff going on there. And so we've allowed ourselves to get sucked into this other crap that means absolutely nothing in the big scheme of things and just makes everybody look like a blithering idiot. You know, like I said, if that's the case, why don't we, let's take the National Enquirer as a credible source from now on. Let's look at TMZ as our best news source for what's happening out here. What's that guy's name out there? Levin, whatever his name is, sits in front of a computer touting a Starbucks tea or something like that. I've watched that show at the gym when I've been on the bike. Just ridiculous stuff. But these are the sources that we're looking to now for integral news as to what's going on. If Ted Cruz had 5 mistresses out there, I can guarantee you by now we would have known about it. Lindsey Graham would have been the one to reveal it because he thought Ted Cruz should be shot anyways. So, let's get on with real business here. This is our short segment here. We got to go to break. When we come back, we'll have Don Dix from Act for America with us, and we'll talk about something of substance. Stay with us right here at the Conservative Syndicate. We'll be right back. You can catch all our archives at theconservativesyndicate.net. The Conservative Syndicate. Real conservative talk from real conservatives.
Prices are for base buildings only. May not be available in some areas. Attention business owners, do you want a stimulus package that really works? Before you spend thousands of dollars more than you should on your next building project, listen to this. General Steel has a stimulus package designed to help you save as much as half the cost of conventional construction on your next building. As much as half. That's right, General Steel can save you thousands of dollars with a pre-engineered steel building designed for your business or church. How about a 50 by 100 foot building for under $30,000? So don't pay thousands more than you should without calling General Steel first and save as much as half the cost and time of conventional construction. With the projected demand for steel in Japan and China, prices may be skyrocketing.
877-927-3360. 877-927-3360. 877-927-3360.
Hey folks, if you're like me, you don't place a whole lot of trust in today's media for the real truth and facts regarding the volatile world of finance and politics. When I want the real scoop on money, I go to the most trusted source I know, my good friend and colleague, Bob Cardoso. Bob is a noted expert with a PhD in international finance who airs his nationally known, globally syndicated show, Robert Cardoso Live, daily, Monday through Friday from 4 to 6 p.m. Pacific Time. With Bob, you'll get the right information at the right time from someone who knows his business and can help you make the right decision concerning yours. Again, Bob airs daily, Monday through Friday from 4 to 6 p.m. Pacific Time. Visit his website at robertcardosolive.com for information regarding stations and topics. That's robertcardosolive.com. Check Bob out. You'll be glad you did.
Read something recently worth thinking about. It's the soldier, not the campus organizer, who's given us freedom to demonstrate. It's the soldier, not the reporter, who's given us freedom of the press. It's the soldier, not the poet, who's given us freedom of speech. It's the soldier who serves under the flag, who defends the protesters' right to burn the flag. Isn't it time now to demonstrate that we support our troops? Were it not for the brave, there'd be no land of the free.
Fred Thompson's message was brought to you by citizensunited.org.
Hey, we're back, and you're listening to the Conservative Syndicate, real conservative talk from real conservatives. I am your host, John Matthews, Mad Prophet of the Airways. So I want to remind you that you can pick up this show and any of our shows on our website, theconservativesyndicate.net. You can go there and find out whatever you want to know about our panel, the people that serve on our syndicate and do such a good job. I think we have some of the best people in the country. I don't care if you don't see them or hear them on Fox News or MSNBC or wherever you go for your news. We've got some of the best people out there. because they're dedicated, committed, and they know what they're talking about. Excuse me. Having said that, I've got with us one of them today, Don Dix from Act for America. How are you doing tonight, Don?
Well, I'm doing reasonably well, John. Thanks. How are you?
Well, I'm doing well. I had a bit of a crisis during the week, and I got through it. I guess probably the latter part of last week, and also today, up to a couple of days ago. I just learning or discovering that Ted Cruz had joined forces with the Bushes, Mitt Romney, and Lindsey Graham. And I understand at this point, the GOP is grasping for straws, so I guess they've decided Cruz is better than Trump. But that really, really got me. It wasn't so much the endorsements. What really got me, what really grabbed me big time, was the Cruz campaign taking Neil Bush on as one of the people on their campaign finance team. And that just set me off. Because Neil Bush is one of the big players on the Common Core. Not to mention that this guy's had some legal problems. So that just really got me. And I just said, you know what? For about 48 hours, I was like, okay, let's put Trump in. Let's just burn this thing to the ground. Let's just get it over with. Because I'm really worried now that Ted Cruz is going to be beholden to these people if he gets into the White House. What do you think?
Well, there's this philosophy in the election process that says you do whatever you need to do in order to get elected. And I guess we have to figure out whether or not we can accept that means that the people that were behind cut deals with the devil. It would be nice if it was all clean and nice and neat and packaged up with a bow, but that's not the process we're in. Even the election process in the primary, when you look at what's going to unfold in Cleveland, it may not be the people who nominate the GOP candidate that's going to take on whoever emerges from the Democratic primary process. Mm-hmm. So there's, as much as we would like for it to be pure and for the people that we get behind to be pure, I think that's a bit unrealistic. Politics is a blood sport, and trying to get elected means at times, I think, when you have to do whatever it needs to be done in order to get elected. Do I want to see Ted Cruz as president? Yes. Would I vote for whoever it is that emerges from the process? Yes. Is it going to be messy? Absolutely. There's no question about it. And a lot of this I struggle with like you do. But there's one thing I know, and that is we cannot have a Democrat in the White House again. So whatever it takes to make sure that whoever it is that can get there is just part of the process. There's a lot of behind the scenes maneuvering right now by the Cruz campaign. One of the things that Donald Trump is able to do is he's able to rally voters. That's a good thing. But ultimately, that's not what's going to get you the nomination out of the Republican convention. Ted Cruz, on the other hand, is playing the delegate game. Mm-hmm. And he's working behind the scenes to make sure that people that are loyal to him get on the rules committee. People that are loyal to him negotiate with the delegates. People that are loyal to him. And that's one of the things that Ted Cruz understands. He understands the ground game. He understands the behind the scenes, politics. And maybe what we're seeing in the things that are disgusting you, and I acknowledge it is disgusting, but is it necessary in order to, get in the eyes of Ted Cruz, in order for him to get elected? Maybe. All this. Go ahead.
I would concede. I would concede that, as I said, within my reasoning, I can concede and say, well, you know what? We understand where the establishment is at. We understand what they're trying to do here. We understand the dirty politics of it all. I would also have to take part of the blame as part of the electorate that has allowed the politics to evolve into this type of thing, where we've got an establishment that's even trying to manipulate the way that you're discussing here, and that we have lost the purity of the politics or the purity of the electorate. And we're the ones being tarnished here, but a lot of it has been by our own hand, by allowing this to go on for as long as it has. It's just, with me, the Bushes are the red line in the sand. I'm like, I could deal with everything else, and I could even deal with their endorsements. Okay, you can't choose who's going to endorse you, and whatever their reasoning is behind it, whether it's pure or not, is irrelevant, that kind of thing. But to bring one of them on your team and say, okay, we're going to give this guy a spot, and I'm saying there had to be a deal making going on with that, and that is what really troubles me about the whole thing. So then it's kind of like, yeah, I can concede all the other stuff as much as I hate to. I've had people like you and other people that I know, convince me that, John, it really sucks, but this is the way it is right now. I give that up. But that was the red line in the sand for me. And I was like, and the only thing that brought me back to the Cruz camp was the Supreme Court nomination. I'm like, if we get anybody else in there, I'm not so sure it really matters who we have in the White House in terms of policies or agenda, because I'm not so sure that both sides aren't doing the same thing. But when it comes down to the Supreme Court, if we lose that balance in the Supreme Court, as fragile as it is all over, in my opinion.
Well, I agree with you. That's a very important thing, because nowadays, I was talking at the conservative conference with one of the speakers there, who was talking about this Supreme Court nomination and the significance of it. Unfortunately, the Supreme Court now no longer renders opinions; they make rulings. And that, when he said it that way, it was interesting, because what do monarchies do? Right. Monarchies make rulings. Mm-hmm. They don't render opinions. What we have now is a Supreme Court that functions as a monarchy, not an opinion court. And so there is so much that needs to, this is why the further you dig into this, the more I question whether or not we, the people, can even save the republic as it was intended to be. And I think that's what we're seeing now, are the death throes of the republic. The people that have thrown in with Donald Trump, that are like, damn the torpedoes, I want someone that's going to go in there with a wrecking ball. Right. And maybe Donald Trump is that guy. I don't know. But yeah, the Supreme Court, very important element to this. But as much as I'd like to think that Ted Cruz, I know people that say that they know things about Ted, for instance, about Ted Cruz, that they would never vote for him. I don't know what those things are. And I got to believe that no matter who the human being is, we're not going to, if we were to lift the covers on who that person is, we would find things that would disappoint, maybe even disgust us. Mm-hmm. The kabuki theater that concerns me most, John, right now, is that too many people are putting their faith that one man in the Oval Office is going to fix everything. Right. And that just isn't so. And that's what concerns me even more than the back and forth and give and take of the presidential, election cycle here. What concerns me more is that we have a situation in this country where the people who hold the political power continue to give it up to their elected officials. They put their hope, they put their power, they put everything in these people. And until the American people take back that power and start to wield that power, we're on a collision course with the future in which the republic dies. And that's what concerns me most. Too many people are putting their faith in one person. Right. in one office. And the real faith should reside in the most important political office in the country, and that's private citizen.
And and that's what leads me to you brought me right to a place where I wanted to go here. This idea here, I talk about two things in this show a lot. The stupidity of the American electorate. I call it the Gruber theorem. I think Gruber had it right when he said the stupidity of the American voter and the lack of transparency and all these things play into is how you get things done. That stupidity allows, or ignorance, it may not always be stupidity, but the ignorance involved in not knowing just as you said here, just the balance of powers. Barack Obama has been able to put forth this narrative that it is the president that dictates and everybody else is supposed to fall in line, rather than Congress dictates and they debate and they determine, and the president either agrees or doesn't agree, but at some point in time, it's the president's job to simply execute what legislation, what the Congress has done, not the other way around. And he's done a very good job of that. And so now we have this mentality that, Donald Trump is going to go in and do this stuff, which I've always questioned. I'm 100% with you. If Ted Cruz ends up in the White House, he's not going to get any more cooperation than if Hillary Clinton ends up in the White House. And so he might get a little more, but he's not going to get a whole lot because the establishment that runs the show at this point doesn't want it messed with too much. You don't want to upset that balance between people that are playing both ends against the middle for their own personal gain and their own motivation. So I agree that the problem is we're sitting here thinking, okay, Donald Trump is going to fix everything. Ted Cruz said, first day I get in there, he's going to repeal everything Obama's ever done. How are you going to do that in 24 hours with a Congress that isn't going to be that willing to do it in the first place? So you look at all this stuff and you say, yeah, a lot of it's just talk. And as Dennis Miller once said, being president, he said, you walk in and you get to pinch the tit of the Roswell dummy. Then they hand you the book of how really screwed up it is. And then you've got to deal with it. You got to deal with it. See, so that leads me to where I'm going today, and I wanted to bring you in on this conversation. I do not believe that the establishment is really that concerned as to who sits in the Oval Office. I think they are concerned with who faces Hillary Clinton, because a Trump-Clinton face-off endangers their majority in the Senate, and that is where the establishment holds their power, is in the Senate. And so that's why I think this dump Trump at all costs plays into it, not because of what the president can do or not do, because of just what we said. One man can't change the whole thing. But the Senate, the balance in the Senate in particular, because I think that's where the real corruption is at, and the real problem is in our Senate. And that is, if that balance shifts back to the Democrats, then the establishment, at least on the Republican side, is going to have a real problem. Do you see that? 8 out of the 10, I got an article here we'll talk about during the time we have left here. 10 Senate seats, 8 of 10 Senate seats that are in danger of losing their Senate seat and going the other way. 2 of them are Democrats in danger of losing. 8 of them are Republicans, which are in danger of losing. And Trump will be the fodder that's being used on one side or the other. So that is what concerns me about a Trump nomination. So we got a couple minutes here. You got any off the top of your head comment on that?
Well, one of the things that I keep scratching my head about on the Trump-Hillary face-off is that, and I think one of the reasons that they're concerned about Trump in the general is that there is not a single poll that has Trump beating Hillary. There's about near 30 polls that have been taken going back to November, and some as recent as last week. Not one of them does Trump even get close enough to Hillary by single digits. She beats him double digits going away. And guess who beats Hillary? Kasich.
Yeah, and that leads. Let me lead this. I'll leave you with this thought during the break here. When I think about these polls, I've given this a lot of thought. If we look at a couple of real solid aspects of this thing here, first of all, the number of people that are turning out for Republican primaries, in contrast to the number of people that are turning out to Democrats, is about 3-1 right now. So to me, that washes away the argument. But what it does ask, what it does beg the question is: are these polls being based on models that assume that we're going to have a 50-50 split out there voting? That's where I'm looking at, because I think if Trump is drawing in the numbers that he is, and Cruz is drawing in some numbers too of voters that haven't previously voted, how does all of a sudden those numbers go away just because he's in a general election? And I'll leave you with that thought here. Maybe you can respond to that, because I'm trying to figure it out.
Right.
We have Don Dix from Act for America with us, and you're listening to the Conservative Syndicate. We'll be right back. Don't go away. You can catch all our archives at theconservativesyndicate.net. The Conservative Syndicate. Real conservative talk from real conservatives.
Term life insurance. It can be a powerful way to protect your assets and your family. You work hard to earn and save your money to build a nest egg for the future. Don't let it get wiped out because you didn't plan ahead. Take the time now and make a small investment in $500,000 or more in quality term life insurance. Call the Term Lifeline and let us shop the best companies to give you the lowest rates. We specialize in policies of $500,000 and above. Ask about some of our 10 and 20-year fixed rate plans with guaranteed rates. Call the Term Lifeline right now for your free insurance quote. 800-870-3609. 800-870-3609. You owe it to yourself to protect your family and your assets. Make term life insurance part of that plan. Call the Term Lifeline right now. 800-870-3609. 800-870-3609.
Hey folks, if you're like me, you don't place a whole lot of trust in today's media for the real truth and facts regarding the volatile world of finance and politics. When I want the real scoop on money, I go to the most trusted source I know, my good friend and colleague, Bob Cardosa. Bob is a noted expert with a PhD in international finance who airs his nationally known, globally syndicated show, Robert Cardosa Live, daily, Monday through Friday from 4 to 6 p.m. Pacific Time. With Bob, you'll get the right information at the right time from someone who knows his business and can help you make the right decision concerning yours. Again, Bob airs daily, Monday through Friday from 4 to 6 p.m. Pacific Time. Visit his website at robertcardosalive.com for information regarding stations and topics. That's robertcardosalive.com. Check Bob out. You'll be glad you did. Today on Moments of Madness. The recent violence that has begun to appear across the country at Donald Trump rallies underscores the truth embedded in the old adage, those who failed to learn from history are too often the idiots that blindly repeat it. Beginning with the removal of Black Lives Matter activists in Georgia, who may have, in all fairness, just wanted to stand silently in protest during Trump's speech, to the sucker punching of a protester being removed for disrupting Trump's speech in North Carolina by a Willie Nelson-looking cowboy, to the 37 arrests for assault, including a very bloody protester in St. Louis, to the nearly riotous outburst in Chicago that led to the hospitalization of several attendees, among them a MoveOn.org organizer. These series of incidences resurrect for those of us old to remember the 1968 Democratic National Convention. The 68 Democratic Convention was a brokered convention brought about by Lyndon Johnson declining to run for re-election, along with the assassinations of Martin Luther King Jr. and Robert Kennedy within a month of each other. Kennedy was running a close second to then Vice President Hubert Humphrey, who had garnered establishment delegates outside traditional primary protocol. Humphrey was the establishment choice. Kennedy, an anti-Vietnam supporter, the people's savior. Also present at the 68 convention was the anti-establishment movement Youth International Party, known as YIPPY, led by Abby Hoffman and Jerry Rubin, and the National Mobilization Committee to End the War in Vietnam, called MOBI, led by David Dellinger. Over the course of 4 days, violence routinely erupted on the streets of Chicago, resulting in 589 arrests, 119 and 100 injuries to police and protesters, respectively, and the death of a 17-year-old stopped for a curfew violation who pulled a weapon and fired upon officers. Here's the madness. Parallels between the 68 convention and what we see playing out today are more than eerie. For instance, there was once again the prospect of a DNC brokered convention. this time to ensure an establishment nominee wins with superdelegates should the current frontrunner with more than a shady past be indicted. Her opponent is a popular socialist lauded by the college crowd who feels the burn. Just as chilling is the even more serious prospect of a GOP broker convention to stop a populist who refuses to play by establishment rules and in doing so has captured demographics establishment candidates can only dream of. Following the 68 convention, another radical group formed at Ann Arbor, Michigan by Students for a Democratic Society called SDS. Founded by a radicalized Bill Ayers, the Weather Underground capitalized on the anti-Vietnam movement and the rise of the Black Panthers. The Weathermen, as they came to be called, participated in bombings of police stations and government installations like the Pentagon, along with riots that coincided with the trial of the Chicago Seven, those who had been arrested on conspiracy charges the year before during the 68 Democratic Convention. Today, college campuses across the country have their own underground. Black Lives Matter, many of them who are being trained by MoveOn.org, who we now see showing up in larger and larger number at Trump rallies. The only impartiality they display is the fact they squeeze in an occasional Clinton event on their quest to whine and moan about their identity dilemma. And who do these self-proclaimed disenfranchised college youths look for inspiration? None other than Bernie Sanders, self-avowed democratic socialist who spews forth his own revolutionary rhetoric of government overthrow through redistribution economics. Yes, the parallels are as uncanny as they are eerie. Even more frightening, though, is the prospect this time around. While everyone acknowledges the inmates are running the asylum, no one in charge seems to care enough to put any of them back in their straitjackets. My guess is they just want to watch history repeat itself. Unfortunately, there are enough idiots running the streets to make it so. This is John Matthews for Moments of Madness. Okay, hey, we're back. You're listening to the Conservative Syndicate. I am your host, John Matthews. I've got with me Don Dix from Act for America doing his segment with us. One of our very, I guess, what appreciative. I'm very appreciative of people like Don to be part of our Conservative Syndicate here at the Conservative Syndicate. And I left you hanging there, Don, before the break here. This idea that Trump loses to Hillary in a head-on, confrontation here in terms of voters, I'm trying to figure out how they come up with those with these polls in terms of the numbers, and I'm wondering if the polls are not being based on some kind of model that kind of adjusts for the voter turnout. I can't think of anything other that any other way other than that would put Kasich over somebody like Hillary Clinton. And the reason I say that is because I watched, like last week during the primaries, I watched the voter count rather than looking at the percentage of the vote or the number of delegates. I was looking at the actual voter turnout, and I noticed that for the Democrat primary, like in Arizona, there was well over 250,000 people show up to vote for the Republican, and there was just a little over 200,000 showed up to vote between Hillary and Bernie. So I'm thinking, well, if Trump has accomplished this and Cruz has played a part in it of getting people to come out in greater numbers, how does that translate in a face-off in a general election that Hillary would beat him?
You know what? You ask a lot of good questions, John, and I don't know that unless you have the insider sort of statistical knowledge of how these polls are put together. I just don't know if it's knowable. You got to know so much in order to be able to. These are just indicators that we can parse a little bit out here as we talk about this. You're right. Trump is bringing out, record-breaking numbers.
Right.
And this is the thing that scares me. If these people are putting their, like we said earlier, this is another aspect of what scares me. These people are putting their faith in Donald Trump. These are folks that vote on the right-hand side of the aisle. They belong to one dimension of the of what makes up the, sort of the Republican base, whether they're really, what I'll call far right conservatives, or they're more moderate. Those people there are people that are coming out to vote that are saying they haven't voted in a long time. Right. So he is energizing people to come out and vote. And this is part of what scares me. If Trump gets shot down in the in this convention process, there are a lot of people that are going to pack up their bags and walk away and never engage in the political process again, and that's a shame.
Right.
Because we need those people. If we're going to correct the course of this ship, this political experiment called America, we've got to have people engaged in the process.
Yeah, and I agree 100%, because that's probably been the most perplexing thing, as far as I can see, as far as the establishment just saying basically, why. All I've heard from the Republicans over the last 4 election cycles, we need to be more inclusive. We need to expand our base. And here Trump has done it, and they don't want anything to do with it. So either that was a lie, just something that's being said, or the expansion they wanted was only towards those people that could benefit them as the establishment, which I don't even in that regard don't understand how that works. What can the establishment, or what would the establishment offer the Hispanic community if they started voting? What would they offer the black community? I mean, they could be doing this stuff for decades and they haven't done anything. So it's like, why now all of a sudden is it an issue? And I just have come to the conclusion that it sounds like to me like the establishment, at least for the last 2 election cycles, have been grasping for straws. We got to find some combination that assures that we'll remain in power, if not in front of everybody, at least behind the scenes. And that's how I see it, Don. I see this, what we see out in front in the public eye, in the public square, are people arguing for the conservatism of Ronald Reagan and the Republic and everything else. It seems like behind scenes it's more about, we don't really care what happens with the Republic as long as we're still in power when it's all said and done. And that even of itself is kind of self-defeating, because if the left accomplishes what they want, these people are going to be gone anyway. So it's kind of, I don't know, it's like this vicious cycle that I'm trying to understand the psychology of it. And I'm going, my God, it almost makes you want to put a gun to your head and get away from it. But I'm not so sure at this point that it's all about the White House. I'm much more convinced it's all about the Senate. And
no, you've got a great point, because typically, well, you know what, historically, do you know what composition of Washington is best for America? I've read several articles on this, and that is a frozen Washington, D.C. is when America prospers. When nothing gets done in Washington, D.C., good or bad, as we know, it's mostly bad. When you have a stalemate between the White House or and Congress, or between the 2 houses of Congress, that actually is ultimately the best for the people, because nothing gets done in D.C. and the people go, okay, we can live our lives without, having to dodge another bullet coming out of Washington. So it's not without precedent that if the balance of power in the administration shifts to the Republican side, that the balance of power in the Senate would shift to the Democrats to freeze up what happens in Washington. And it would be great for the purposes of, if we had people like David Bratt sprinkled through, and Louis Gohmert and Mike Lee and a bunch of others I could name, if we had those people with a majority in Congress and hopefully in the Senate, well, Mike Lee's in the Senate, but if we had more of those people, I would be much more confident that we would get good policy out of Washington.
Well, yeah, the argument I've been presenting on the show off and on is just in line with that. It's this thought that, right now what we have is a Congress that keeps telling us that for some reason they're the first Congress to ever exist that can't get anything done because they don't have the White House. And I look back and I think, well, Reagan had Tip O'Neill, Clinton had Newt Gingrich, And they were very capable of being able to kind of come to a place where they quit stepping on each other's toes. And that was some of the most prosperous times of America that we've known. And yet here we are. You guys have got a solid majority. You've been telling us for 4 years you needed this, 6 years you needed this. We gave you the House. We gave you the Senate. Now you need the White House too. And I just don't buy into that. I think the plan is to just try to retain the control that they have in Congress for their own personal reasons. And I think that it may be true on both sides. I'm not so sure that Democratic establishments really care who's in the White House, because I think these people are kind of like the people that play war games. You know, we give money to both sides because somebody's going to win and we'll make a profit either way. That's kind of how I see it right now. And I know that's very pessimistic and cynical, but I think the evidence, the empirical evidence out there supports that it's not really about who's in the White House, it's who's in Congress that matters.
Well, yeah, and I just wish for the past year that we had a Congress that would have stood up to President Obama and shown him for who he was.
Right.
You know, we had too many things, you know, this omnibus budget. There was even, we got a briefing from someone that knows the inside baseball on Common Core. And last December, there was actual bipartisan legislation that was passed that the fellow that used to be in charge of the Department of Education, that was Obama's appointee there, said we got more out of that Republican-controlled legislation passed that codified certain aspects of Common Core in December 15th. It was a 1,200-page education bill that no one paid attention to.
Right.
They gave Congress 2 days to read it, and it was brought and passed, and this was as bad as Common Core. In fact, it codified and fixed many of the illegal aspects of Common Core or unconstitutional aspects, and this is what our Republican-controlled Congress is doing.
Right. Yeah, I got to interrupt you, Don, because we got to take a short break here. When we come back, I'm going to close the day out asking your comments on something that Obama said when he was down in Cuba taking in the ball game, and just before he left for Argentina to go tango. You know, this is so representative of what we have today. But we got Don Dix with us from Act for America. We got to do our short break here. We'll be right back. Stay with us. You can catch all our archives at theconservativesyndicate.net. The Conservative Syndicate. Real conservative talk from real conservatives.
Prices are for base buildings only. May not be available in some areas. Attention business owners, do you want a stimulus package that really works? Before you spend thousands of dollars more than you should on your next building project, listen to this. General Steel has a stimulus package designed to help you save as much as half the cost of conventional construction on your next building. As much as half. That's right. General Steel can save you thousands of dollars with a pre-engineered steel building designed for your business or church. How about a 50 by 100 foot building for under $30,000? So don't pay thousands more than you should without calling General Steel first and save as much as half the cost and time of conventional construction. With the projected demand for steel in Japan and China, prices may be skyrocketing.
877-927-3360. 877-927-3360. 877-927-3360.
Hey folks, if you're like me, you don't place a whole lot of trust in today's media for the real truth and facts regarding the volatile world of finance and politics. When I want the real scoop on money, I go to the most trusted source I know, my good friend and colleague, Bob Cardoso. Bob is a noted expert with a PhD in international finance who airs his nationally known, globally syndicated show, Robert Cardoso Live, daily, Monday through Friday from 4 to 6 p.m. Pacific Time. With Bob, you'll get the right information at the right time from someone who knows his business and can help you make the right decision concerning yours. Again, Bob airs daily, Monday through Friday from 4 to 6 p.m. Pacific Time. Visit his website at robertcardosolive.com for information regarding stations and topics. That's robertcardosolive.com. Check Bob out. You'll be glad you did. back. The Conservative Syndicate, real conservative talk from real conservatives. I've got Don Dix from Act for America doing his segment with us this week. I'm going to read you a quote here, Don. We'll close the conversation today with this. I'll let you comment on it, give you the last word on it. Obama down in Cuba. In the keynote speech at his historic visit to Cuba, President Obama on Tuesday pointed to the messy 2016 U.S. election campaign as a sign of American progress over the last 50 years. It isn't always pretty, the process of democracy. It's often frustrating. You can see that in the election going on back home, Obama told an audience that included Cuban President Raul Castro. Now, here's the quote. But just stop and consider this fact about the American campaign that's taking place right now. You have two Cuban Americans in the Republican Party running against the legacy of a black man. I love that. He's a legacy. The legacy of a black man who was president, while arguing that they're the best person to beat the Democratic nominee, who will either be a woman or a Democratic socialist. Who would have believed that back in 1959? That's a measure of our progress as a democracy. Your thought?
Wow. Well, if that's what Obama defines as progress, it's and that is completely in character with who he is and what he stands for, because he does believe that is progress.
Right.
You know, the notion that we have a socialist running for the president of the United States, which is a democratic republic. Nowhere in there does it say socialist. Nowhere in the founding fathers' founding documents did they embrace any aspect of a government resembling anything that had socialist DNA in it, because a lot of the socialist forefathers came along after the establishment of America, so it wouldn't have been socialism back then. But this. Well,
I mean, do you notice how he painted himself outside that box?
Oh yeah. Well, look. He's a modern day Nero. He's fiddling while Rome burns. Mm-hmm. The idea that he would take to a dance floor, I mean, the optics of him appearing in a picture beneath Che Guevara.
Oh, I know.
This is the Oval Office equivalent of giving the finger to America.
Right.
That's exactly what that was.
Yeah.
And then to hop on a plane. Listen, if you were you got me all emotional now. If you were the president of the United States and a major terror attack, I mean, think about it. You compare the number of people that were dead and injured on a ratio of population to America. You know, Belgium is a much smaller country than America. But on a pro rata basis, this was every bit as devastating as 9/11 was to us.
Right.
And
the Che Guevara thing. Che Guevara, who, by the way, happened to be a racist.
And he was a butcher. I mean, guy.
Yeah, I get that, but his writings, in turn, he refers to Negroes as lazy and unintelligent and everything else. And here's, he worships this guy.
Well, this is the twisted nature of history, because you discount one aspect of a person so that you can promote and celebrate another aspect of them. Right. And this is what the progressives do to history. They completely rewrite history so that it serves their needs.
Right.
And here's a guy, and a lot of what he did is completely in character, because what does he think the biggest threat to mankind is? It's global climate change. So let me ask you this: what does a president who thinks that the biggest threat to mankind, global climate change, do? He takes 2 Air Force Ones to Argentina, not one.
Right.
He takes 2. I mean, everything about this guy, from what you pointed out, the legacy of the first black president, to just thumbing his nose, telling us that we've got to modify the way we live, but then taking 2, not because it was a security measure, but because it accommodated his need for sightseeing.
Right. Yeah, I get it. I was laughing about this last week when I was watching some stuff on the the Filipino channel. Al Gore's over promoting climate change over in the Philippines. And I was busting up in the gut. I'm saying, yeah, I wonder how much he paid for that trip. I wonder what's going on here. Unfortunately, Don, we're out of time here.
Yep.
I wanted to give you a minute here to plug everything that you're doing. I know we didn't get a chance to talk about the IE conference. Maybe we'll get that next time.
Absolutely, yeah. It was a huge. Everybody there was like, "Oh my gosh, this is the best thing I've ever been to." And all we hope to do is to shift the trajectory of conservatives just a little bit. Have them do a little bit more, get them a little more grounded in their beliefs. It was great. We will get the audio files and the photographs up on the uniteye.com website. So stay tuned. Perhaps over the weekend we'll get a chance to get that done. So you might want to check that out and listen to the conference.
Yeah. I'm also looking forward maybe going down to Politicon this year. They're supposed to have Dinesh D'Souza is supposed to be down there. He's supposed to be one of the headliners down there. So we'll see how it goes. Anyway, Don, I got to let you go here. I really appreciate you taking time to come on. And we'll be talking to you, all during the week, all next week, and beyond. Thanks a lot, my friend.
Absolutely, John. Take care.
Okay, guys, we're at the end of the show here, and we'll be back on Monday. God bless you all. It's time now, as we always close the show on Friday, time to raise them up, and then we'll be back on Monday, 3 o'clock out here on the West Coast, 6 o'clock on the East Coast. Visit our website, theconservativesyndicate.net. God love you.
Guide me to who you want me to help. Raise up more that will call upon your name. Raise up those that love you and seek you and trust you. Raise them up, Lord. Raise them up. Lord, we need a generation of believers who are not ashamed of the gospel. We need an army of believers, Lord, that hate to be lukewarm and will stand on your word above all else. Raise them up, Lord. Raise them up. I pray for unity among those that love you. I pray that you open their eyes so that they can see your truth, Lord. I pray for your hand of protection and guidance. Raise up a generation, Lord, that will take light into this world, that will not compromise when under pressure, that will not cower, Lord, when others fall away. Raise them up, Lord, that they will proclaim that there is salvation in the name of Jesus Christ. Raise up warriors, Lord, who will fight on their knees, who will worship you with their whole hearts, Lord. Lord, call us to battle, that we may proclaim you King of Kings and Lord of Lords. I pray these things with all my heart. Raise them up, Lord, raise them up.
Thanks for tuning in to this edition of the Conservative Syndicate, the globally syndicated, politically incorrect talk show that seeks to tear down the imaginary wall of separation between church and state. We want to make you aware you can find and access all of our show archives at our website, theconservativesyndicate.net, as well as our broadcast stations and times. That's the conservativesyndicate.net. We so appreciate you taking time to tune in, and we so look forward to continuing to bring you the best and uncompromised talk radio available on the net today. And remember, folks, it doesn't matter how many times you get knocked down in life. It only matters how many times you get up. I'm John Matthews, signing off until next time, right here on the Conservative Syndicate. God bless you, and may God continue to bless America.